Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Gehrig?
Here.
Grinberg?
Here.
Pepcorn?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Finance. The city uses purchasing cards to pay many of its bills and earns rebate revenue by using the purchasing card program. This year's annual rebate check was $235,148, and the city's cumulative rebate since the inception of the program is $1.5 million. Good going, Kent. Can we all get credit cards like that too? Health. In recognition of World AIDS Day, Fargo Cast Public Health will host an HIV/HCV rapid testing event on December 2nd from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Harm Reduction Center at 510 5th Street North. Testing is free and no appointments are necessary. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends people aged 13 to 64 test for HIV at least once in their lifetime. Data shows that fewer than 40% of Americans have been tested. The Fargo Class Public Health offers free rapid HIV testing on an ongoing basis at the Family Planning Clinic during regular business hours. The individual would receive their results within 20 minutes. Inspections. With the cold weather settling in, the inspection department requires that cold weather protection be used on all concrete and other products. The inspections department provides citizens and the contractors the services they may need at all times, including after hours and off hours for an additional fee. Police. Chief Todd attended the International Association of Chiefs of Police conference recently in Chicago, where he had a chance to learn about the current trends and philosophies in law enforcement and see how Fargo measures up as a department compared to others throughout the country. In the areas of policy, recruiting and hiring, public information, social media, community engagement, use of technology, intelligence-led policing, and wellness program, Fargo is ahead of the curve and in some cases leading the way. So you'd say we're a fastball. We're always going fast on this, Chief, right? And finally, our Creative Service Division has put together a video highlighting the celebration for the opening of the Fargo Civic Plaza Phase 1. It's exciting to witness not only the opening of the new chapter of our shared spaces, but also see the activation of the space that could become the Civic Plaza Phase 2. Greg, are you ready? It is truly an honor for the city of Fargo to have this hotbuster here. Fargo truly has the buzz and is the brightest star in the upper Midwest. We're just getting warmed up. Watch out, we're going to continue to grow and have marvelous things happen.
Sodbuster represents this first step for us as we move forward with the Civic Plaza. Sodbuster is leading the way, plowing through what will become one of the signature open spaces for Fargo.
I don't know how much you know about Luis. His work is known across our great nation for portraying working people by elevating common deeds to the heroic level. You can see this in the Sodbuster. I see your community of Fargo, and I hope you see the shared values reflected in this sculpture of Sodbuster. Thank you very much for keeping Sodbuster alive for future generations.
Nicely done. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda moving item 1 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda?
I so move. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November 4th, 2019 regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 31, excluding item 1, which has been moved to the regular agenda?
I so move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes. Is Greg here? We'll move.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, there you are. I thought you'd be up in center. Our first item is an update from Greg Devine on the Grant Farm. You've got the podium. Greg, you can go right here too. Closer to you.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm joined by my colleague, Brian, who's the director of our Grand Farm operation. First of all, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the City of Fargo and the City Police. One of our guests from Cultivate from Northwest Arkansas was part of the situation that unfolded at the Radisson on Friday morning. I just want to say thanks to the City of Fargo for ensuring our guests are safe. Quick response, a bit of a surprise, but he's feeling good. So what we wanted to do today was to come and share a little bit of an update on the Grand Farm. Some of you may have heard about the Grand Farm objective. What we'd like to do is to share with you our timeline of what's happened to get us to today, share with you our priorities, and give you a hint at what we're working on. Our hope today is to gain further understanding on the Grand Farm. If commissioners have any questions, we'd certainly welcome the ability to answer those. So the Grand Farm started with Barry Batchelor at 1 million cups in, I believe it was January of 2017, asking us, what is, in front of 330 people, what is Fargo's major? What is our collective skill set that we can do to make a difference for the world? Through a series of conversations, we decided that our major is advanced technology and agriculture, and that we can make a very large difference with that. It began a conversation of what would it look like to power the first ever 100% autonomous farm. In July of 2018, Kevin and Stacy Biffert gifted the Grand Farm Project 40 acres of land south of Fargo on I-29 off exit 54 at 124th Avenue South. That led to a conversation and engagement where we put together a steering committee. We've applied for some key grants. We've hosted Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue to the ribbon cutting. We've hosted FCC Chairman Ajit Pai to hear the vision, and most recently Brad Smith, Governor Burgum, and Barry shared the vision with the community where Microsoft announced a $1.5 million contribution. A few of you were there, so we wanted to give you those highlights. So the Grand Farm is looking at powering the 100% autonomous farm, and we've got 5 priority areas that we're focused on to help our community reach that potential.
So as we think about the priorities in order to execute onto the strategy, we really broke it up into 5 key areas. The first one is to have a world-class ecosystem, an ecosystem that we can bring people from the region, from the nation, and also the globe into this area so that we can think about what it's going to take in order for us to power the farms of the future. The second key activity is around an innovation platform. This platform is designed to bring the research community, large organizations, small organizations, and startups together in an IP-friendly situation in order to advance different startups that occur. The third strategy is around the test site. This is what people will associate with the Grand Farm, the actual makerspace. This will be on the 40 acres that were donated by Kevin and Stacy Biffert, and the idea is that this makerspace would be an enabler for people to work together. Our original concept design around that was patterned around the Epcot Center. We wanted a place where people can go, dream about the future, the vision, work with some of the greats within our ecosystem, and start to develop technologies that will power the farms of the future. The fourth one is around upscaling the workforce. And we identified that with technology, there's a lot of disruptions that start to occur. And so what we wanted to be able to do is put ourselves in a position in which we can identify what those requirements were and start to think about what would be needed in order for us to help move ourselves along. And the fifth one is around policy. How do we get to a point where we can find public and private partnerships that can enable these innovations that take place? So as we move forward with the strategy, we have 3 exciting updates. The first one is we're pretty close to recruiting in an innovation platform, a business accelerator. So we are looking for corporate partners in order to do that. If we do that, we will have an accelerator in this region that will power startup companies. The second one is the Emerging Digital Academy. We want to launch that in April. We have partnerships that are in place. And we would expect to have a code school up and running that can start to address the demand that we need from an employment standpoint in order to get these new technical jobs that we have. And the third one is the Grand Farm Test Site. We're building partnerships. So we had a big announcement a couple of weeks ago. Microsoft committed over 3 years, $1.5 million to address these different pillars. And now it's time for us to develop partnerships, engage with the community, and look for ways in which we can make these things come to life.
We're getting strong signals of interest from around the world. In October alone, we were part of 37 media articles. We're getting calls from Brazil, the UK, a variety of places wanting to come into our market. On Monday, we hosted a Toronto company, publicly traded company with over $1 billion in revenue, looking to expand their impact with us alongside the Grand Farm. And also at Cultivate, our agriculture technology conference that we hosted last week. A year ago, we had 300 attendees. This year, we had nearly 600. Key element to remind folks of is we want to put growers at the center of the network. We believe the grower sits closest to the challenges. They can help us identify problems, work with technologists to solve them, and to make it possible. As we think to the future, slide, click, advance. There we go. We've got a mostly good architect. Chris Hawley and his team are helping design what we believe will be a world-class environment. We're already getting student groups that want to come utilize the space to consider new possibilities. We're attracting folks from around the world, and we're in the early days. The Grand Farm is led by a steering committee of 10 folks, chaired by Laura Smolbert, with representation from Eric Hardmeyer, Michelle Comer, and others. We're in the early days of pushing it forward, but we're very optimistic. We're here today to share with the City of Fargo, who's been a great supporter of Emerging Prairie, the early stages of our vision. We've been meeting with Stanley Township on a regular basis to share with them what we're working on. A few weeks ago, we were at the Cass County Commission group where we're talking with their planners and their engineers on how to design the site to meet expectations in code. And we're just really excited about the potential of the project.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I got two.
Pepcorn.
One is about the drones. Do you have to have a special, or are you going to make some kind of special to have drones have the access where you don't have to have them with an eye? You know, now there's some regulations. That's one. And then the other one was autonomy. You know, sometimes there's regulations with that too. Are those things that we can assist you with, or are you making plans with that? Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, so to address the first question on UAS, we were on Friday with the Northern Plains test site where we're going to be having follow-up meetings to make sure that the use of unmanned vehicles can be appropriately utilized. So one of the advantages of this project is the great work in Grand Forks, both with Northern Plains test site and Grand Sky. The second question, remind me of the second question?
First one was drone, second one was autonomy.
Oh, autonomous. Hold on, clarify your question. I was thinking about the first answer.
I just think of right now in the city, you know, autonomous vehicles, they're very regulated, and I guess maybe it isn't as much of an issue, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, so at a high level, there's 3 different roads that are right near the Grand Farm test site. There's a frontage road that is operated by the township but controlled by the state of North Dakota. There's a county road, and there's a federal interstate. So our priority is to first look at creating an autonomous friendly frontage road, which Stanley Township has been engaging with us, working with the North Dakota Department of Transportation. There's also 2 types of vehicles. There's the road vehicles that you or I may have driven to get here today, and there's also farm vehicles. So we're looking at those regulations. I think as the City of Fargo thinks about its future plans and some of your projects, we identify the Grand Farm, which could be a test site, much like the Northern Plains test site was able to utilize beyond line of sight out of Grand Forks for some of the pioneering impact in the world. We see the Grand Farm as having the ability to do that.
I see President Dean Brashani in the audience as well. Is there some collaboration with NDSU?
Yeah, so Brian and I host a standing meeting with the Department of Agriculture and their Precision Ag Department. We were there last Friday with their team. Their students, their faculty, their alumni are involved in the process. Dr. Jane Shu, who's the Vice President of Research and Creativity at NDSU, sits on the board of Emerging Prairie and has been attending our Grand Farm Steering Committee meetings. This past week, we hosted the Hands-Free Hectare folks from Harper Adams University in the UK, and Dr. Shu hosted them with us, helped facilitating potential research collaborations both in the UK and beyond.
Fantastic. Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. It's really great to talk agriculture in North Dakota, even though ag's in such a terrible state right now, but it's good to see a future that's got some brightness to it. A question I have is, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking, if you have an autonomous setup with the farm, could you put that anywhere in North Dakota, or does that have to go where the technology and the bandwidth allows it to be? And are we going to find gaps going forward with our technology that will say, if we're going to have these futuristic farms across the state, we have to step up our technology and bandwidth and so on as well?
So think about the label of the autonomous farm as a moonshot, as aspirational. So as we break it down into what's possible and what we can do with innovation, right now we're doing our infrastructure planning and we're identifying key elements. So access to broadband. So Microsoft sent the leader of their airband initiative to town last Thursday where he met with key leaders. We're also looking, so broadband is a limitation, policy is going to be a limitation, and our understanding is what we're creating here at the Grand Farm is designed for scale. So the innovation of our professors or our technologists can be replicated in other environments.
And then when you take a look at the network that we want to do, we want to build into different networks. So an obvious one is NDSU with the extension services. They have extension services in all the different counties. So we see that as a big opportunity. Also, we've been making plans with a group out of Memphis called Ag Launch, in which they have this digital acre throughout the whole Delta Basin. And we would look at an opportunity to partner there. And then our newest engagement is with the Hands-Free Hectare with Harper Adams, an opportunity to influence that. And then you take a step further and you look at the opportunity to go into Africa and also in India. We have different connections there. We're working with this group called the OPC Group. They're based off of Morocco, and we have an opportunity to partner with them. So we see partnerships as the key, and what we want to be able to do is identify these different limitations, because these are things that we can bring collaboration towards in order to solve.
Another unexpected conversation we've had is, what does the farmstead of the future look like? So we've had conversations with the innovation team of a large healthcare provider, thinking about what would the home need to have, both south of Fargo, but also, and for folks that have ties to Bismarck, we're saying that the farm is north of Bismarck. So if you could help us with that, that'd be great. Sorry, Tony, that was an attempt at humor, but maybe we should agree. But we're thinking about the homestead of the future, and so what might telehealth look like? What might distance learning look like? Trying to think about supporting folks beyond just our region.
Very good. Any other questions? Commissioner Grinberg?
Lead off of Commissioner Strand's question. Comments on 5G? Their role here for 5G, is it?
Yeah, there's certainly a hope. I think South Dakota just announced an effort to bring 5G to the state of South Dakota. We definitely have that hope. We believe higher quality internet is going to unlock abilities both today and far beyond into the future.
Very good. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Think up all the hard work you're doing on this, Greg. I know it's taken a lot to get this to where it is. You both are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will then go into public hearings. First is item 33A, continued from 12/16/19, alley vacation of the alley between Lot 12, Block 26, and part of Lot 7, and all the lots 8 to 12, Block 25, Roberts, second edition. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 7/2, continued from the 8/12, 8/26, and 10/21 regular meetings.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, could I make a motion to continue 33A and C? So, aren't we supposed to?
32A and C, okay.
Know what we're supposed to
Is
do?
there a second?
Correct. Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Garrick, did you get those changes?
I did, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Garrig?
Yes.
Strand? Mahoney?
Aye. So then we'll go to 33B, zoning change from downtown mixed use to conditional overlay of downtown mixed use, and request to repeal the conditional overlay in Lot 1, Block 7, Harward's first edition. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission and continued from the 10-7 regular meetings. First reading of the rezoning ordinance. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. Your packet includes a zone change ordinance prepared by the City Attorney's Office for this item. As the Mayor has stated, item 33B is a zone change from downtown mixed use with a conditional overlay to downtown mixed use. That is, we're removing the conditional overlay, but the remaining, or the underlying zoning of DMU, downtown mixed use, remains. Conditional overlays are part of the zoning ordinance. When we rezoned it to DMU, the conditional overlay is part of that. So the only way you can modify it or get rid of it is to go through another zone change. It's a procedural reason we have to do this way. The location of the site here is North University Drive, 7th Avenue North. This would be the Family Fare grocery store here. This was, for you old-time Fargoans, once Rosie's Laundry here. Along 7th, this is a Park District property. These are apartments here. And in the aerial photo, it shows a residence here. That residence is owned by the developer. That has been demolished and construction is going on in this location. As we see, that house used to be here. Here's the existing building. And here are just a couple shots, one from 12th Street, that is the east side, and then one, here's the intersection of 7th Avenue and University Drive here. So we see the old existing building there, built right up to the property line, right up to the sidewalk, as you see. And this construction continues. I was out there right before this meeting, and the construction's still going on. As we talked about the zoning, this is the location of the DMU. These are the two properties here. There's DMU across 7th Avenue, and there's a commercial, of course, here on University Drive, and some residential as you go back into the neighborhood here. The applicant is requesting to remove the existing conditional overlay. This conditional overlay limits building height, building and parking lot setback, in relation to the northern property line, as well as additional fencing requirements on any proposed parking lot. This conditional overlay was put in place in 2017 when this property was zoned to DMU. The original applicant did not have concrete plans for the development of this site at this time. Even with the removal of this conditional overlay, the residential protection standards, which are part of our ordinance, will still apply to this property. The applicant has provided a general site plan here. So this is the parking area, the landscape buffer here, which is actually specified in their residential protection standards document. And there's a setback adjustment here that was part of that residential protection standards situation 2 here. Again, the existing building's built right up almost the property line. The new addition here is going to be a little setback a little bit. This is going to be a restaurant in this location. And again, with the existing residential protection standard requirements, the addition in the parking lot will be set back from the northern property line in order to protect the existing residential uses to the north, as we saw in the aerial photograph. The applicant will also provide a landscape buffer on the east half of the lot to protect the existing single-family house here. The applicants, so all we're doing is taking the conditional overlay off. All the other standards of the DMU still apply, and of the residential protection standards. The applicant's representative, architect Chris Hawley, on a different project than before here, as well as the attorney John Krings are with us tonight and may wish to address the commission. This concludes staff's presentation. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak? We close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question, Mayor.
Mr. Strand?
Donald, help me understand it. What was it before it was a DMU? And did that happen in 2017?
Yes, sir. I believe, I'm imagining, I don't actually have that in front of me, that whatever that original zone change was. Mr. Williams, do you recall that one? Is that residential? I didn't have that document, sir. But that was changed as a part of the 2017 zone change to DMU. There was an earlier version of this, was brought by an earlier applicant, as I recall.
I think, Donald, they didn't have access to the house they bought so that they could expand what they were going to do.
Perhaps
Before, they were just going to do a restaurant just out of Rosie's, but they didn't really have much parking. So
I think that's the case.
I think
sir.
that's why they were questioning the change, John.
And do you recall what the neighborhood reaction would have been then? There was.
I don't have that with me, sir.
It's very similar to tonight. No comment. Any other discussion? Mr. Gary, you okay?
Yep, thank you.
Roll call vote.
Lindberg.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Gehrig. Gehrig.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item D, Renaissance Zone Development Plan Update. Nicole Crutchfield to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm in front of you tonight to seek your support for an update to the Renaissance Zone Plan. And this is done every 5 years based on Century Code. And so what's in front of you, I'll walk you kind of just slowly or quickly through the updates here. And for those that don't know, and for the audience, there's many different types of projects that apply to Renaissance Zone. They don't all come in front of you at the City Commission level, but we look at rehabilitation projects, new construction, residential projects, and leases. And as I mentioned, we are asked to do this by the Century Code every 5 years. And really it asks for an update to our development plan, making sure the boundaries are what we want, the goals of those blocks for redevelopment are what we want. And then it also has us connect with the school district and Cass County to confirm they're still in support of this, and then we have the public hearing. So tonight we have the public hearing as well. So we started this process in July where we also brought on KLJ to help us with a little bit of our data research. But we sent a mass mailing out to property owners to confirm what kind of projects they might have in the works in the downtown area. And we also had an open house in September, as well as have a little workshop with our Renaissance Zone Authority. And we have visited with Cass County, presented with them, and received approval, and it's going in front of the school board here next week. But we did go to the planning board of the school district, and at this point, they are recommending approval. So talked about our outreach efforts, and then a little bit of what we heard on the workshop with the Renaissance Zone Authority is basically affirming our initial current vision and kind of touching base with some of our recent case histories. We have some really good case projects in the last few years, like the old former chamber building up the street here with the dentist and the yoga studio, and really trying to make emphasis on some of the mom and pops that businesses that use the Renaissance Zone as well, and kind of have a chance to check in with our downtown and focus goals and compare those with our Renaissance Zone goals as well as our Go 2030 goals. And so one of the primary changes that you'll see in front of you is a slight modification to the boundary and updating towards our goals, and really just reformatting the plan a little bit to clean up some duplications. A quick summary on the boundary update. We have, by Century Code, we have a set number of blocks that we can assign. And just as a reminder, those blocks have to be touching or connected. We can't kind of leapfrog. They have to either touch diagonally or abutting. And as well as we can have one satellite block. So right now that satellite block is currently assigned in the Oak Grove neighborhood, the Jesse Craig project there. Once that project is completed or in process, we can move that satellite block and apply it somewhere else. We don't have to wait for the 5 years to be up before we can do that. Also, just as a note, we have 49 blocks by the Century Code, and the Renaissance Zone Authority chose to assign 47 of those blocks, keeping 2 of those blocks like in the wings. We like to say kind of on hold. As many projects might come up, most of the property owners that we spoke to didn't have a project in the ready, but they might have something in the ready in the next 5 years. And it's a lot easier to just add a block as it is to try to remove a block and move it somewhere else if that was the goal of the City Commission and the Renaissance Zone Authority. So we chose to leave 2 blocks unassigned. We also spent some time analyzing kind of the edges of the Renaissance Zone. And so we know of some property acquisitions on the northeast corner of downtown, as well as on the western edge of downtown. And then the shaded blocks represent blocks that have been in the Renaissance zone in the past. And so just kind of affirming if those, we've removed them for some reason or another. And so just to help us in nomenclature, we called those A1, B2, and C as we talked about different portions of the city. And then again, at this point, the only property we are seeking to apply back into the neighborhood is B2 along Main Avenue. With the Main Avenue reconstruction, we've already received some inquiries from people interested in developing along Main Avenue. And so it makes sense to bring the block B2 back in. Also, we did another assessment of our half blocks. So when the city owns, or when there's public ownership in a block, we're allowed to count those as half blocks as opposed to full blocks. And so it's another reason why we want to not quite assign all 47, because if we were to sell a building like the, say, on the public health building or something, and that were to go into private ownership, that block would then become a full block as opposed to a half block. So we want to stay somewhat flexible. In the zone update plan, the addition of the B2 block, that's really the only time we can add a block that's been removed and back and bring it back. So otherwise, the boundaries and moving blocks can happen throughout the 5 years, like you've seen recently in the Radisson hotel block. So we've talked a little bit about the benefits. There's currently 81 projects under new construction and rehab. The question I received at the Cass County was, when do we know we're done? We know we've had that discussion below, and there is some discussion on Broadway. There's a lot of blocks that maybe have some paved parking lots that aren't fully developed, and we want to make sure we give full opportunity to all those landowners that to fully develop those blocks. We did suggest removing of the Woodrow Wilson block. That is a block that is complete, and so just to kind of re-emphasize that we do, when a block is completed, remove them out of the plan and assign that somewhere else. And maybe just a quick component on the Renaissance Zone as well. So under the existing plan, there's 15 goals and initiatives that are encapsulated under the Renaissance Zone plan, and the staff does actually score those. And through discussion with the Renaissance Zone Authority, we chose to streamline those and align those back to the downtown and focus plans. And so on the left-hand side, you see the 7 goals of the downtown and focus plan and the 15 goals of the Renaissance Zone, and basically we just grouped those goals that are in the Renaissance Zone plan to kind of simplify our scoring processing. And but this is all to remind us why we do the Renaissance Zone, and that's keeping with the same goals we've adapted back in 1999, which is economic development, targeting certain block areas, looking at high priority land uses, investment, and then looking at that urban design, street activation, and historic preservation, all important priorities of the Renaissance Zone. So in the black of the plan, you'll see in the last few portions where staff literally goes through block by block and talks about the development possibilities on those blocks and how much of that block is developed and what that proposed land use should be, like whether it's housing or mixed use or offices. And so we just had some slight tweaks in that this year to align that with the downtown and focus plan. But otherwise, it's the same plan that you've seen over the past 15 years. So these are the steps we've gone through, and touching base with each of our agencies. And that concludes my presentation. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. And just as a reminder, it is a public hearing.
Are there any questions of the commissioners?
I just have a couple. First of all, Nicole, thank you so much for doing this, and I think this is a great tool, because now all this information is going to be in the minutes, and so when people are interested about this, they can look it up, because there's so much, it goes into great deal about almost every project. So thank you for doing that. And I just wanted to point out the key numbers on page 35. So back in 1999, it was 197 million was the property value of the downtown. And back then, the issue wasn't going up. Our property values were declining in the downtown, and so that's part of the reason that it was done. And that's incredibly successful. And so obviously now the value is 546 million, so it's been one of the great things. And so when Cass County asks, when are we done? Part of this is extinguishing. Once you do a project, you can't do it again for that property. So that's part of it. But the downtown in Fargo, we are never going to be done. Downtown Fargo, that's what's unique. There is no other downtown Fargo. Many of our competitors in our area don't have downtowns, and we are the downtown for probably this region. A lot of people come here, and if you stay here tonight, if you go down here any weeknight, it's packed. And so back in the day, and obviously I'm a little bit older now, back in the day at 5 o'clock, it emptied out, and now this is a hub of a lot of great things. So the Renaissance Zone, obviously Commissioner Grinberg and the legislature and lots of the predecessors were to thank for that. And there's lots of other things besides the Renaissance Zone, but it's been incredibly successful, and government programs like this, they're few and far between. And so we have to continue them going, because it's been a great thing. Thank you.
Nicole, could you just remind the public what Renaissance Zone mean? What is a tax break that somebody would get if they had a Renaissance Zone project?
Sure, it varies slightly, but basically you have 5 years of income tax, and you have 5 years of property tax exemptions as part of a Renaissance Zone project. And so you do have a minimum threshold. I did keep some slides in the back pocket in case we wanted to go in there, but there is a minimum threshold of what you have to develop. So, back in the day, as Commissioner Pepcorn was talking about, even 12 years ago, I still remember receiving an application for basically a pole barn on Broadway, and they would not have qualified for a Renaissance Zone project because there's a minimum threshold on that based on the Century Code. So I think it's important to remember, that their Century Code allows for the Renaissance Zone. By not submitting for the 5-year plan update and by not doing this, we basically turn away prospects that are eligible for us to use for developers and landowners. And as Commissioner Pepcorn did say, it's a one and done kind of thing. And so I do know of some property owners who might be holding on to that possibility of doing a Renaissance Zone project for that as a leverage for a future buyer, or as a leverage for a future investor, and have chosen not to use the Renaissance Zone plan until they have some longer range plans, or that second generation, third generation family owner might work on that project. So it's important to recognize those what people do with that project.
Is there any public input on Renaissance Zone? Anybody want to speak? Anybody wishing to make a comment? We'll go back to the commission. Any other comments? Mr. Garrick, you okay?
No comment.
Okay. Mr. Strand,
I move the recommended motion.
and is there a second?
Second.
Seeing no other discussion was wanted, a roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Hearing on the proposed elimination of Matt Bus Link FM downtown circulator route. Matt Peterson to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. During the 2020 budget process for the city of Fargo, the funding for Link FM was proposed to be removed, and that was the budget that did get approved for 2020. As part of our requirements for FTA, Federal Transit Administration, we do have to hold public meetings and public hearings to let the public know that we are looking at removing this route, and that's what we're here for today. I did provide you guys a packet, a handout packet today with the comments that we have received to date from the community in regards to Link FM. Link FM ridership started back in 2015, or Link FM started back in 2015, I should say. The ridership increased pretty significantly the second year. The first year was only about a half a year. Right now, as of today, we're just over 10 rides per hour, which is kind of like the baseline of a fixed route that we would see. It is a free service that operates and it adjoins Fargo and Moorhead downtown communities. And then during special events such as Street Fair, the UMCOMPS has several events each year, include Pangea, a couple of those types of events, TEDx events. The ridership definitely spikes during those. And so what we did was we pulled ridership by year, but we also pulled ridership by year by time of day. The route currently operates Monday through Friday from 7 in the morning to 9 o'clock at 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night? No. I'm having a brain fart here, I'm sorry. It starts at 7 in the morning and goes till 7 at night. It's 12 hours Monday through Friday, and Saturday is 10 to 5. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's only Monday. Lori, yeah, I know. Neither one of us can do it. We deal with this all day long. So anyway, the numbers are in front of you. As you can see, the early morning hours don't really see a lot of ridership, and neither do the later evening hours. We generally see the most ridership on the route between 10 and 3 o'clock, 10 and 4 o'clock, just depending on the events that are in town. These are the special events that we have put extra vehicles out on Link FM service for, or we have seen a significant increase during those events. There's 10 of them here, something like that. Definitely street fair is the biggest. We top out around, that 65, 68 passengers per revenue hour on there. So that's pretty big impact. So those are the numbers, just so that you guys have them. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer them. Otherwise,
Any questions of Matt? Commissioner Garrick, any questions?
No questions.
So I think, Matt, one of the questions was asked is that sometimes as you're high statistically, times in which you have things happening, I'm under the impression the city of Moorhead was interested in maybe perhaps continuing some things on those days, and they paid 50% of the cost. Is that still true?
that is correct. So City of Moorhead pays 50% of the cost of Link FM. They are in favor of keeping the service out there, possibly changing the service a little bit. One of the options being looked at is only putting the service out there for those special events such as Street Fair, Unglued, Pangea, those types of things. That is something that we would need to get special permission from FTA for. We have an email into them, but we have not gotten a ruling back from them yet, simply because it could be considered a charter service. And since we are a public transportation system, we really can't do charter service. So once we get that ruling back from them, we would have more information. The other option that we were looking at is we could potentially cut Link FM down to like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday type service, since the majority of the events happen on the weekends. That would reduce the budget on both sides, but the service would still stay there, and we would be able to add vehicles to meet demand if needed during some of those larger events such as Street Fair. So those are a couple different options.
So basically, you'll be coming back to us with that report, or what are you wanting on tonight's proposed motion?
On tonight's, basically what we're looking for is guidance. If if the 2020 budget stands and we want to eliminate Link FM as of December 31st, 2019, that would be the motion on the table. If you guys would like us to do some research, come back with some cost estimates for running a reduced service, whether that be for 3 days a week, there's that option as well. So we've gotten a lot of comments related to this. Initially, the plan was to remove this to help pay for the new industrial park service that we put out. So we're just kind of giving you guys the options there and letting you take it.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, so John and I met with Matt this morning, and Matt, you're doing a great job, so thank you for and I apologize for the long day. We all can relate to that, but the other thing is the Moorhead Council meetings last 4 or 5 hours, and ours are usually an hour and a half, so that's the good news.
Right.
But I think that the other good thing is that the industrial park is going very well. You're going to come back with a report about that, and so I think for now, I would be in favor of temporarily getting rid of this and then looking at some other options, because the new system is different than it used to be, and so maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Could be a potential solution too.
Sure. So we're exploring alternate ways of doing or providing fixed route service, if you will, such as the Industrial Park Tap Ride and the NDSU Tap Ride. We are coming up on a transit development plan year. We are required to do that every 5 years, and during that plan we will be having the consultants look at how we could increase efficiencies throughout the system, whether that's using smaller vehicles. We do have a paratransit or a cutaway size vehicle, which is a lot cheaper to operate. That's what we use for our tap ride type services. Currently with Link FM, we're using a large 35-foot fixed route vehicle, which is quite a bit more costly not only to operate, but also to replace. And so there are some other options that are out there. We can be as creative as we want. Really, we're just kind of looking for some guidance.
Are you then being creative enough to have autonomous vehicles pick people up? Did I hear that came out of that?
We brought that up this morning, yes. And that is something that we are looking at doing. There are some hurdles. Grand Farms actually talked about some of those with the driverless vehicles with the state that we have to get through. So we have some research to do and some legwork to do with the state of North Dakota, but that is something that we would like to see in the future.
Okay. Motion?
I have a comment and a question. Matt, when this surfaced, and this came out of our budget, and so budgetarily this came to you. And yet you're here asking us, we've already approved the budget. You're asking us, as I hear it, for some options? Or if we stay where we're at, it's gone?
Right, yes, and that's the point of the meeting today, is to satisfy our public hearing commitment. So if the budget stands as is, we eliminate Link FM as of December 31st. Commissioner Pepcorn, as you had mentioned earlier today, Link FM is kind of its own brand, if you will, and it can always be looked at and revisited later on. So if there was, another service or something like that, or an alternate service that was wanted to be provided downtown, I'm just here providing you the comments and giving you guys the options of what's out there. It's a little, and I apologize, this is opposite on how we normally eliminate a route. Normally we would go through the public hearing process before the budget is approved and that money is removed. So it's a little backwards is all, yeah.
And I'll chime in a little further. What part of our budgetary discussion and actions this last year for transit was adding service to the industrial park, which was critical for jobs.
Correct.
And that's working well, I understand.
It is, yep.
And the other area where we had addressed this last year, we had a real challenge with keeping bus drivers because their wages weren't adequate.
Correct.
So we substantially raised the compensation package to get new drivers and to keep them. And how's that working?
Very well.
So where I'm at on this is I'm okay trying special events if there's an appetite for that. I'm not sure if that's a feasible one for your department. It's like a piecemeal. Mm-hmm. But that's where I'd like to see us try it for special events and see if we can keep, the street fair and the Pangea and the Unglued and these other activities going.
Sure.
Maybe for the moment, but I'm not sure where you all are at with that.
I need a motion.
If I could, sorry, but if I could, if we were to do that, we would have to get the approval from FTA to do that, and then we could provide you with the events that we have up here and a proposed budget that you could consider a budget change at a future meeting, if you wanted.
Mr. Strand.
Mayor, I move.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, get Commissioner Garrick.
Commissioner Garrick.
Yep, sorry, I'm on a little bit of delay there. I think that most of us are on the same page, whereas we see the value of it for the street fair and those other big events. We don't necessarily see the value of it as a daily commuter. So I don't know what John was going to motion there, though, but what I would like to see happen is for us to vote to end it tonight, as we did with the budget, and then come back in whenever we get that approval that Matt was talking about to say if we can or can't have it for temporary events. So I'm not going to make that motion. I'm going to hear what John says, but I think that's what most of us are that's kind of the end game I think most are looking at.
Okay.
So Mayor, I'll move that we.
Can I stop just for a minute?
Absolutely.
I have to close public hearing since we didn't have any comments. So I'm going to close public hearing. Now can I have your motion, Commissioner Strand?
I move that we proceed forward with the discontinuation of the ongoing Link program, but that we explore and have your staff create a proposal and cost out for us what it would look like and what would entail to do it on a special events basis only going forward, starting next year.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Can I add to that? There's other potential things like, that you talked about, Matt, running on the weekends and having maybe a different direction of the link, having the connection be a different direction or things like that. So I think all that should be part of the discussion. And Commissioner Strand is the Matt Bus liaison. And so anyway, to have a discussion with that, I think would be good, and then come back to us. So I think that's what you propose. So I think that's good.
Did you want to say something? Can you come to the microphone, please? If it's okay with the commissioners, we'll allow them to make a statement.
Okay, one question I have is, there was mention about the possibility of having like a smaller shuttle, like kind of what's used for paratransit. And I'm wondering if the budget could accommodate continuing having the link run along with the Tapper ride, but just using like a smaller shuttle rather than the big, huge bus that's currently used.
Matt, that's you.
So currently in our budget, no, that is not feasible at this time.
Although what you might report back when you look into special events is the possibility of using a smaller bus for
Yes.
something. And I think what Strand and Garrick have both requested you, can we look at other possibilities? And I think that's what you're saying as well, Dave.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and we're more than willing to look at
perhaps you
other
guys could look at
possibilities.
different options and report back to us. But the gist is we're going to shut down the regular FM link.
Yep, as we know it today.
Yes. Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 34, applications for property tax exemption for improvements made to buildings. It's a list of A through K. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Garrick,
Commissioner Garrick?
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. State Water Commission request for cost reimbursement for FM diversion flood project. Cost amount to $3,699,516.47.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Garrick, Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Appointment for the Fargo Dome Authority. You have my recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Construction projects update. I'm told that Brenda Daring has great slides tonight for us to see and completions as well.
I have a lot of pictures for you guys tonight.
Sorry, Tony, you don't get to see these.
So as
Greg
I've,
sent them in.
Okay.
as I've started all of it, all of my presentations, I want to reiterate that we do Twitter on our Fargo streets, our Facebook, and then our website also that we keep up to date throughout the summer. Most of our projects are completed. There are still some waiting on electrical work, and some do have some sidewalk or trails and boulevard work that will be remaining for 2020, but we'd be looking mostly at lane closures only. There will be no full closures. And related to the remaining work, we did have, as you guys all know, quite a wet fall to keep us moving ahead on our projects. There have been no safety incidents since our last update on the 23rd of September. So for a total, we had 2 safety incidents this summer, which were very minor, of just going and getting checked and then coming back to the site. So I thought I would start with 52nd Avenue. This is looking east towards I-29 from the Cheyenne River. And that is mostly completed. We will have some trail work that has to be done next year, along with some boulevard work, and they are still working on the traffic signals along that corridor. So I thought I'd add in, we've got the new R-Cut intersections there, and then the bridge at Drain 27. And then on Main Avenue, that's looking east on Main Avenue towards Moorhead. And then I thought I'd do some zoomed in from 4th Street to Broadway, and then along the roundabout there. Some of the other projects that have completed is up on 19th Avenue North. We've got that work completed and open to traffic. And then upon the completion of that, you've got on the left, we're looking towards the horse park. And on the right, we have a new industrial park that was installed right after the 19th Avenue project. And we did an early building permit up there. So you already see the business is almost completed and ready to open also after that road was completed. We also have completed our work along 23rd Avenue South. We are waiting for, there will be a signal at 42nd Street and 23rd Avenue, so we are waiting for that. But that allows that north part to connect back into 42nd Street down by Border States Electric. Some of our new developments that we are working on the left, you can see the start of our Selkirk addition. That's the project that is being done privately. And then on the right, you're looking at Bison Meadows. You're looking to the north, and you can see our retention ponds up on the north there, the regional retention ponds, along with the trail system that connects to the trails to the north. Here you're looking to the east, and we've got the new greenfield projects. We've got Madeline Meadows just west of 25th Street. You have Eagle Valley to the east, and then off on the far you can see the Bison Meadows. On our flood projects, what you're looking at here is the completion of the Copperfield Court and Oak Creek levee. This was the last connection point over on this side that we completed this summer. And then this is the Rosewood and Rose Creek project. Rosewood completed that levee along Rose Creek, so from 25th Street all the way to University Drive, that section is completed. Here's the start of the Belmont project. This is way on the south end. This winter or fall, I guess it's fall, they started on the flood wall just with the high rainfall events we were having. They started on the wall, and then in the spring we'll be working towards the levee and reconstructing that. And then lastly, I wanted to wind it up with, we have a new Oak Grove pedestrian bridge, and that is completed, and include some pictures there.
Did you do the drone, or did the firemen do the drone?
That's actually, those ones are being flown. So we try and get pre and post construction projects so we can see the differences and everything happening. So usually we try and do a spring fly and then a fall fly.
Fantastic. Any questions of the commissioners? Very good. Item 38, recommendation for the 2020 infrastructure funding policy and fee schedule. Brenda Darren and Tom Knockmall to explain. Long time coming. Is this 18 months we've been waiting for this?
Yeah. So good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. 2 weeks ago, we held a brown bag highlighting our proposed infrastructure funding policy. So this policy was derived from us listening to the Special Assessment Task Force, the commissioners, and then the citizens of Fargo. We have taken what we've heard and incorporated it into our proposed policy and procedure. We looked for a balance between maintaining our infrastructure while reducing the cost to the citizens. The policy you have before you does just that. So I wanted to hit some of the highlights, just a few of the slides that we talked about at the brown bag also. And so some of the highlights of our proposed new infrastructure funding policy is we are still recommending that installations would continue to be 100% special assessed or paid for by the developer. One of the things we did hear though from the task force group is that the letter of map revision, that no longer be special assessed. That would help reduce those special assessed costs on the greenfield development. So those would now be part of the developer's cost. Another thing we did on greenfields and new developments was to create a tiered system that would be utilized for multifamily residents. The utilization of the infrastructure becomes proportionate for the special assessment with the size of lot. So currently, MR is one category. What we're recommending is that MR would go down to 4 categories. So you have a tier 1 that would be a 1 to 3 units, a tier 2 would be 4 to 12, a tier 3, 13 to 36, and a tier 4 would be a large unit, 37 or greater. We also, on the independent standalone traffic signal installations, those would now be 100% city funded. The highlights and the changes for the rehabilitation and the reconstruction: for sanitary sewer and water, the sanitary sewer lift station rehabilitation or replacement costs would no longer be special assessed. And the proposed policy, one of the things we did find out as we were going through and looking at our CIP and the 4-year CIP is, as we looked at making reductions, what we found is the downtown has such a high cost of construction that those capped costs were making it more about around 90% city funded and 10% assessed. So we're really going to a goal of an 80-20. So we are recommending that the sewer and water cap costs be increased in the downtown mixed use area due to the increased costs. That creates a uniformity between the downtown and the rest of the city. Sewer service replacements as part of the street reconstruction project would also no longer be assessed. This would equate to about $5,000 a lot. In regards to reconstruction rehabilitation for paving, streetlights, and signals, again, we would use a tiered system for the multifamily residences. And then Prairie Dog would be utilized to accomplish the following: buy down paving for single family residences along with tier 1, 2, and 3 by 50%, buy down the paving for MR tier 4, commercial and DMU by 25%, and then eliminate special assessments for single family residents and MR tier 1 and 2 when they do not directly front an arterial. It would also be used, streetlights and traffic signals would also now be included in the paving capped assessed costs. You wouldn't see those additional assessments when that work is done. Switch.
So Brenda talked about our proposed changes. Now we'll look at what the actual impacts are with this proposed policy. As you can see in this first example, this would be a typical home along Broadway, so an arterial direct paving replacement. Under the former policy, it would be about $14,700 being special assessed. Under the current policy, it's about $3,100, and our proposed policy would bring it to about $2,600. Again, another example, this could be a house anywhere in the city of Fargo. So this example is an arterial, or a property that doesn't directly front an arterial when that arterial is being reconstructed. So under our former policy, it'd be about $2,500 that would be special assessed. Our current policy is $1,200, and under our proposed policy, it would go to 0. That special assessment would be eliminated. Another thing we heard a lot about was just what Brenda talked about earlier, how all MRs were in the past just under one category. Creating this tiered system has a large impact as well. So this would be an example of a typical 3-unit apartment on 4th Street where the arterial was reconstructed and underground was replaced. Under the former policy, it was about $64,500 that would be special assessed. Under the current policy, it's just short of $27,000, and under our proposed policy, it'd be $12,250. This is just another example of kind of show some more detail of how the different policies kind of handle what gets special assessed and how. So this would be a typical house along South Drive. On the project, we replace water main, sewer main, water and sanitary sewer services, street lights, driveway approaches, and of course the roadway. And then we also rehabilitated storm sewer and sidewalk. So really this property got
essentially a completely new infrastructure. So under the former policy, it'd be about $18,700. Under the current policy, it's $13,600, and under our proposed, it'd be about $9,200. We also just want to summarize, the funding and where Prairie Dog is being utilized in our capital improvement project. So these are all projects citywide as we are proposing in our 4-year CIP. I do just want to mention that these numbers did change a little bit from the brown bag, just as we've continued to refine our proposed CIP. But as you can see, left to right across the table, special assessments average about 29 million, just short of 30 million per year. Anticipating using 12.3 million in Prairie Dog on average per year. It's our understanding it'd be 25 million per biennium, so about 12.5 million per year. Street sales tax is about 7 million per year. We do, in 2018, our allotment was 6.5 million. We expect it to continue to be right around that number. And then those other funding sources, which include federal aid, state aid, flood sales tax, and then traffic, storm, wastewater, and water utility fees. And then this just summarizes the projects, only those projects that actually use Prairie Dog. And those are really just in 4 categories. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in the next slide. But it's federal aid reconstruction, arterial reconstruction, street recon and water main replacement, and pavement preservation projects. So it really is just reconstruction projects, no new development or initial installation. So again, you can see the amount being utilized from special assessments, Prairie Dog, street sales tax, and then those other funds. So just how is Prairie Dog being utilized? As we talked about, it averages to about 12.3 million per year. And you can just see the breakout of in 2020, 21, 22, the breakout of arterial reconstruction, the street recon and water main replacement, and then pavement preservation. And then we do have a project in 2023 that we would also anticipate using it on a federal aid reconstruction project. With fees, we did work with our finance group quite a bit looking at this. So currently engineering markup is 11% for initial installation, 6% for rehab and reconstruction projects. We're proposing a 10% flat fee for all projects. Administrative fee is currently 6%. We look at reducing that to 4%. For special assessment bonding, it's currently 1% over the bond rate. We're proposing going to 0.75% over the bond rate. And then legal and miscellaneous and construction carrying costs, those are actual costs that get charged, and we would recommend no change on that. So just want to also summarize, what we took away from the Special Assessment Task Force. There were 26 different recommendations made by the task force, and 22 of those recommendations have either been addressed in the proposed policy or being incorporated into our processes. One was not implemented just because it wasn't allowed by Century Code, and then 3 others that just weren't taken into our staff's recommendation. So again, just want to really highlight the major impacts of the new infrastructure funding policy. What we've been able to do is eliminate special assessments associated with traffic signals. We've been able to eliminate special assessments associated with rehab or replacement of sanitary lift stations. And we've also been able to eliminate streetlight assessments when it's part of a street reconstruction project. We've also been able to eliminate the cost of arterial reconstruction assessments for single-family residences and MR Tier 1 and 2. We've also been able to eliminate the cost of special assessments associated with a sewer service replacement as part of a street reconstruction project. And as Brenda talked about, we were able to make a 50% reduction in reconstruction costs assessed on single-family and small MR properties. And with that, here's our recommended motion.
Any questions? Nice presentation. You shortened up and went through it. I think the commissioners have talked to you as well individually for any individual questions they've had about that policy. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, we've had a lot of time spent on this topic from the point when we started the task force many months ago, looking at the history, the background, understanding that under North Dakota Century Code, the benefit of special assessments and infrastructure costs. I've extended, obviously, my sincere appreciation to the task force, as well as the discussions we've had here to get to this point tonight. The motion in September to direct staff to come up with a plan based on the task force recommendations, and I have to be, I'm very excited. I mean, this has been a long time coming. It's been a great effort, and the results are dramatic and in favor of the taxpayers. And that really reflects the sentiment of former House Majority Leader Al Carlson and Senate Majority Leader Rich Wardner when they had a press conference and tagged this the Prairie Dog Bill, as Senator Wardner from Dickinson shared, that North Dakota's wealth is going to be spread across the state. After years of keeping up with demand on infrastructure costs in the oil patch, it's now time to invest statewide. And the timing of this task force, as well as that legislative action, have really made a profound change for the city of Fargo. And so I've had numerous conversations with my former colleagues over the last week describing what staff have recommended and what we ultimately will debate tonight and pass. And they're very pleased with what they've heard based on the intent under the framework of state statute, and what we're focusing on here and really rifling it in to reconstruction is going to have a significant impact, as you've shared tonight. So hats off, great work, and I'm excited about the future of continuing to move Fargo forward and modernizing our infrastructure and working with the legislature and the citizens' concerns to make the best happy medium to move forward.
Mr. Garrick.
Thanks. Are you looking at taking 38 alpha as a separate motion, or are you looking at taking it in consideration now?
You can do either way if you would like to bring it up as an amendment to what this is. This present motion is the recommendation to accept the findings from staff, basically.
Okay, Eric, could you explain the memo, please?
Yes, well, in your packet at item 38A is a memo that identifies the gist, if you will, of a proposed ordinance that Commissioner Garrig asked for some input from me on, and put it in kind of a rough draft form. Basically, the idea would be to take the Prairie Dog funds and place those funds as they come in from the state, from Bismarck, you might say, into a restricted account, a Prairie Dog fund account, and those would be applied toward annual certified specials. In other words, for people that have been levied special assessments in accordance with a policy such as this proposed infrastructure funding policy, an amount would be levied for a particular project, then annually each property owner would be have an amount that's certified for collection. This ordinance would take money out of that special restricted account and apply it toward, across the city, toward people's annual certified collection amounts. The ordinance would provide latitude for the city commission on a supermajority basis to allocate some of that restricted account money toward other purposes. Of course, the Prairie Dog bill itself has restrictions. It can only be used for aging, you could say aging infrastructure, only not on new development or anything like that. But so it'd still have to be applied toward an eligible account under the Prairie Dog bill itself, but a supermajority could allocate the money towards something other than reducing the certified amounts for collection.
Does that reflect your motion?
So with that, I just want to point out that this memo is a framework. It's not saying we have to do the exact draft of what I've been thinking of. But it provides that we still support the CIP. It provides that we still support the 2020 infrastructure plan, which the motion is doing. It would not change our special assessment system as far as how it's being allocated, again, supporting the 2020 infrastructure plan. And it also provides for input from all commissioners to say, hey, what are we going to do with this newfound Prairie Dog bill money for the citizens of Fargo? So what I'm asking is that we just consider the fact that we could come up with an ordinance saying, hey, here's where those dollars are going to go. And I think that we've all heard the clamoring from the constituents saying that we want our specials to go down, and this would directly support that. So there's a suggested motion on the memo. If Eric wants to read it, he can. But I move to amend the current motion to the suggested motion that's on the bottom of the memo that Eric has there in for me.
Is there a second?
Mayor, could I ask him a question?
Go ahead, Commissioner Strand.
Commissioner Gehrig, I'm just trying to discern the difference that would result in if your motion were passed versus the motion that we're considering. What I'm seeing is you're calling for an ordinance, which is one nuance. I'm also seeing that you're attaching this, connecting it to certified specials, but I don't see much difference. And help me if I could understand what you're suggesting that would be significantly or different than what came out of the process.
There is not much difference, but there is significant differences as far as the procedure goes. Right now, if we approve what we just motioned, those prairie dog funds can be used for any new infrastructure. For example, we could build a new parking ramp in downtown Fargo and use funds for that, or repair existing parking structures that we have, or whatever. All I'm saying is that we should focus these funds to offset special assessments for the city of Fargo, which is not dictated in Century Code, but it is what people of Fargo want. So again, it's not a major difference. I simply want us to have a clear structure, and I think, John, that you're someone who likes to see that clear structure of how we're going to use these funds going forward. And what we're proposing currently does not give a concrete structure for that. And again, I'm not saying I'm not dictating where that goes. I'm asking that we as a 5-commission member commission set out those rules for that. And for me, I would be pushing for, hey, this all goes towards reducing the special assessment debt, or special assessment burden, I should say, for the residents of Fargo. So again, there's, I think, 6 bullets there, kind of ratifying what I want to see. And hopefully we can work inside that framework to come together as a city commission and say, hey, here's what we really want to do with this fund.
So I'd have Brenda or Tom comment to this, because the reality is we'd never use it for a parking lot. It's not anywhere in your policy right now. The policy you had presented to us would take care of putting prairie dog funds to specials. The policy that you worked on for 4 months very much addresses those things. It's not an ordinance, but all the commissioners have a right during budget time to change whatever we spend the money on. That's an opportunity to change that. So your present policy would be a methodology of how we're going to spend the funds and how we're going to bring specials down. Plus, you've addressed many other issues in your policy. Can that money be used for a parking ramp?
What I would say is, once you have your policy and then you also have the approved CIP, then you've determined where those funds are going. So with the CIP, you're correct, they're all going towards reconstruction projects. And then upon the next step, when we're back for the CIP approval in a couple of weeks and start presenting on that, that's when you're gonna be really locking those funds into what projects that they're gonna be designated to, which is what is shown on the
But according to
slides.
state law, we can't use it for a parking ramp.
As far as what I've read, I haven't seen that you can use it for that. I've seen like a
And I've read
water
the state
plant.
law, we cannot use it for a parking ramp, because there are many cities in the state would love to do that, and it is not allowed. They want us to use this for infrastructure. So the concern Commissioner Gehrig has is we would not be able to do that.
Correct, so water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, sewer, water lines, water storage systems, stormwater infrastructure, road and bridge infrastructure, airport, electric transmission line, natural gas, and communication infrastructure excluding fiber optic. So that's one reason we took it out of all of our street light and traffic, is because sometimes we do have fiber in those projects.
Commissioner Strand?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Gehrig?
For example, it says airport in there, right? So we've been kicking around the idea of a parking ramp at the airport. I think that language is pretty wide open to seeing what you could or couldn't. My point being is that state law is pretty broad as far as what we can use these funds for. I want the people of Fargo to know that we are intending to buy down your specials with this money because that's what they want. So, and again, I'm not trying to dictate to the other 4 commissioners where the money exactly goes. What I want is for the people of Fargo to have a clear idea of exactly every year going forward, and not just in 4 years, but in 10 years and 20 years, as long as this prairie dog funds are available, where those funds should go. So I am perplexed as to why there'd be pushback for us to say, hey, here's what we're going to do with those dollars, and not just a 4-year CIP where we could have 3 new commissioners in the next 3-4 years. We want the people of Fargo to know that we heard you. We want you to know that we're going to buy down your specials with this, and that's the only thing I'm pushing for. There's nothing that says we can't use it for other things, because within the memo that I gave you, the 2/3 vote, we could do something else with it. But until such time, I want people of Fargo to know we're going to buy down your specials with this amount. That's my full intent with this memo.
And I think the present policy addresses that, but again, the airport cannot do a parking lot. That's specifically put in state law as well as a policy, so they could not do that. So the concern you have about a parking ramp doesn't really exist because we can't fund that, and the state will take the money away if we don't use it the way they've asked. So Commissioner Strand, did you have any other questions? Commissioner Gehrig?
Commissioner Gehrig, I'd like to thank you and Commissioner Grinberg especially for leading this effort and this dialogue in the community, and it's been really valuable, and it touched a raw nerve with the public. Obviously, we needed to address these concerns. Where I'm at with this in my head is the CIP is going to be our roadmap going forward. And my advice to us at our table is let's put more transparency into the CIP process. It goes through finance. One of the last years it went through consent potentially. But let's knowing this impact, knowing this influence, knowing this application of the prairie dog funds, knowing the connection to the future and maintenance, that's my only thought is let's step up the public visibility and our interactions in the CIP process so that this is really all visible right up front all the way through.
So I would say there's no second to the amendment, John?
Did he make an amendment motion?
He made a motion. There was no second, and you asked to ask.
I don't know if the others have not or not. No.
Amendment lacks for lack of a second. Any other discussion before the vote?
Mayor.
Commissioner Strand.
This journey has been so significant, and we've had so much history with the people as it's been addressed and unfolded, and we've gone down this path. I'd like to commend all of you and our task force and the diverse voices and the folks out in the public that challenged us and pushed us. Here's what I know. We had our task force, but I know that our departments that worked on this really interacted with folks and listened and heard, and we've gone way further than I think many of us expected us to with this overall infrastructure process and plan going forward. I just want to thank you for listening to the people as best you can. I know sometimes it comes across as hard criticism to take, but this is serious stuff when it's their money. And people moving to Fargo, we've kind of gotten this scarlet letter about specials that was important we addressed this. So I hope Commissioner Gehrig can join me. I know we're not all 100% on board, but we've gone a long ways down this path. And Commissioner Gehrig, I think you really pushed us as a commission and connected to the public. And Commissioner Grinberg, you led this effort. So it's not perfect, but it's so substantially improved. And yet we'll keep looking at it and improving it. My only advice is the CIP process going forward, we step it up.
Very good. Roll call vote.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gehrig?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Want to finish the final one here then? Item 1, receive and file ordinance relating classification of ordinance violations. I think Chief Todd's going to explain this.
I'll take the first shot at it. Nancy Morris, Assistant City Attorney. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you. In 2019, the legislature passed House Bill 2304, which was codified at North Dakota Century Code 40-0506, which limit the city fines and penalties. Section 2 of 40-0506 provides that the city fines may exceed the fines stated in North Dakota Century Code 39-06.106 by 100%. This legislation was effective on August 1st. Shortly thereafter, Chief Todd identified a number of traffic offenses that contribute to public safety concerns, as noted in the Fargo Municipal Court Bond Schedule, which I believe a copy was presented to you earlier this evening. The ordinance attached to my letter for receive and file will be amended to reflect a few additional offenses, including the unlawful passing of a school bus and a proceeding past a school bus on the oncoming lane. Those fines are presently $50, and the proposal is to increase those to $100, which is 100% of the allowed fine. So as presented today, I would recommend the motion as indicated, and the ordinance that I will be presenting to you in 2 weeks will be amended, so I move for receive and file at this time. And I believe Chief Todd wants to visit a little bit about some of the offenses that he was recommending increased fine for.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for letting us speak today. I think the traffic section in North Dakota Century Code that's being addressed here was written in 1973 with the fines that are associated with that. And slowly our state has fallen behind in traffic fines. I'll give you an example. A 15-mile-an-hour speeding ticket in North Dakota is $15, whereas in Minnesota it's $140, in South Dakota it's $125. A stop sign violation in North Dakota right now is a $20 fine. In Minnesota it's $130, in South Dakota it's $125. Under the proposed recommendations in North Dakota, or at least for the city of Fargo, we would jump up from a $15 fine on the 15-mile-an-hour speeding ticket. We jump to $30, and for the stop sign violation, we would go up to $40. So still significantly less than our neighboring states. But I think that we need to take this step as a deterrence value. That's probably one of the bigger complaints I get as the chief of police is regarding traffic in the city of Fargo. And perhaps with a slightly larger fines, we might have some deterrence.
I think Commissioner Pipcorn had a question about a friend.
Right, I'm gonna ask for a friend. So can you give me an example? So right now, let's say you're going 37 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone in residential Fargo. So right now, it's 20 and it's gonna go up to 40, is that approximately right?
Well, so you're talking about exceeding the speed limit by 12 miles an hour, correct? So that would be, under the proposed fine, that would be a $24 fine. It previously was a $12 fine.
Was a $12 fine?
Yes.
All right, like I said, this is for a friend.
Might want to go 50, Dave.
Asking for a friend, I get that a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. And so just to summarize, the other thing is, so stop sign, it's $40 now, and a traffic light, will that also be $40?
Yes, that would also be $40. Jump from $20 to $40.
Good work. Any motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think the speeding fines are still, this is the maximum though that the state is permitting at this time, correct?
For municipalities. Now, you get outside this municipality and you're on the interstate, it's still the previous fine for the rest of the state.
So
we are probably one of the last larger municipalities to pass this. Bismarck, Grand Forks have already passed this.
But from my perspective, these are still incredibly low, and I just, it's one way for people, I don't speed in Minnesota just because I know how much the fines are, and it's not a good message for us to, when they're still low even with this increase, I think, and I think public safety, it's a legitimate thing, and so I guess you have to congratulate the legislature for at least making a little bit of a movement, because it's been the same for a long time. Commissioner, would you mind speaking about that? Because I think it's interesting.
Barry's in the room, and I'm not going to talk about all the hall conversations I've had over the years in the legislature on this topic. We'll leave it at that. Over a beer sometime.
I think the judge is here because he wants to see this happen. He has a hard time enforcing the $20 fines. Any other discussion?
There is just a long history on this topic, I can tell you that.
Yes, there is. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand? Mahoney?
Aye. Any other business? John, do you have somebody's
I don't.
birthday that you want to celebrate? Wasn't it Pipcorn's birthday?
I think he was celebrating at NDSU Saturday, I heard. Maybe I read that in the forum, I'm not sure.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Good discussion. Thank you, everybody. Good night.